Ladies and gentlemen, this is White Lightning 777. Here to do another video. The latest outrages from the illegitimate Biden regime, subsidiary of Beijing, and have concerned me. Now, before I do the video, to address YouTube's complaint about the vaccine, see your doctor. If you're medically cleared to get it, do so. Get tested. Do I have the virus? Get an antibody test. Did I recently have the virus? Am I eligible to be vaccinated? Of course, if you're cleared, go for it. But if you're one of those unfortunate people that obviously don't go against medical advice, because you'll end up on that VAERS list, and a lot of the people who do have issues with the vaccine just went up and got it and didn't even bother. A lot of them didn't even bother to find out if it was compatible with them. So, like if you've recently had it and you've had monoclonal antibodies, for example, that's one thing where those have to clear out before you can get it. And of course, if you're under 12 and, you're a kid, well, you probably counterindicated. But, if you're medically cleared, there's no reason not to. The risk is, no drug is perfect, but, look at the warning label on a bottle of Tylenol. Okay. You really want to you really want to scare the crap out of yourself. Read what that crap could do to your liver. Freaking Tylenol. Yeah. Well, the jerk himself has come out with this mandate. Now, vaccination should be voluntary. Why? Again, you don't want to pressure somebody into going against medical advice, or to get people to do things that are not safe for them to do. And that's the problem. It's like it's like kids in the schoolyard. If there's peer pressure to use a certain drug, and, there's peer pressure to, say, smoke crack, well, it's a bad idea to smoke crack. But some people are going to do it just because they're pressured. We don't want that. If you're medically cleared, take it. Don't take it if you're not medically cleared. Do not go against medical advice under any and all circumstances. The vast majority of people, however, will do just fine. 99 out of 100 people will do just fine. So we'll get that out of the way. Well, the mandate pressuring businesses, somehow if you have over 100 employees, somehow the coronavirus is lethal and we got to test once we vaccinate. But if you have 99 employees or less, of course, obviously obviously the virus, you're completely immune to the virus. There's no way in hell, it can't go there. That virus, it counts to 100. It sits there and bounces around the ceiling. Is there 100 people? How many shifts are there? What if you have 100 people total, but 2 shifts? Is that 50 people and 50? Or 3 shifts, is that 33, 33, 34? Or is it a total of 100? Or does it have to be the same shift? The idiot doesn't even answer that simple question. Are they all there at the same time? Or not? If you have 100 employees, but they all work from home, like if you're a multi-level marketing, well, those are rip-off anyway, but this is stupid. This is just plain dumb. Idiot doesn't answer that. The idiot also, to make matters worse, has decided, because he's a communist, because again, remember, the mandate is designed to make he doesn't want everybody to get vaccinated, even though you should. It's designed to make lefties, Bolsheviks, and communists smile and get vaccinated. It's designed to piss off people who don't subscribe to that ideology. The whole messaging of the Biden regime, by the way, Trump won, is to encourage vaccine among his voters and discourage vaccination among Trump voters. And if people that, well, this is a conspiracy theory, okay. Well, how come the idiot just cut monoclonal antibodies to red states, states that he lost in the election. Florida, Texas, I think Georgia, North Carolina, a few other places, Alabama, a few places like that. Again, the people who live there, again, and you know, the monoclonal antibodies, unlike your vaccines, anybody can take Regeneron of any age, as far as I know. If you're a 10-year-old and you're having a hard time with the virus, most kids have a great prognosis, but if you don't, you can take the monoclonals. So there's more eligible people. Yeah. You cut those things out. Now you've got two things you could do. What you could do is cut the dosage down so that people get a lower dosage but still benefit, or you just got to like render more people ineligible. If you didn't, communists kill people. They kill people a lot. And since no doubt Beijing has run the country, the deprivation of medical supplies has a role. Probably another good reason to get vaccinated. But then we got to look at another question. What the hell is a vaccinated? Who the hell are the unvaccinated? What does it mean to not be vaccinated? Well, it has nothing to do with your immunity. If you are unexposed to a vaccine, never had the virus, and have a completely naive system, of course, you can now be vaccinated. If you've just got over having Delta, and you just got your negative tests back last week, you were sick for 2 or 3 weeks, went through hell, have natural immunity, which in many cases is at least as good as vaccination, if not better, well, you're unvaccinated. Okay. What about hybrid immunity? Hybrid immunity is where you've had the virus and you've been vaccinated, or you've been vaccinated and had the virus, so you're exposed through artificial means and natural means. That's hybrid immunity. Well, hybrid immunity, if you look at studies, have some of the highest antibody titers, and natural immunity is the gold standard. Hybrid immunity is the platinum standard. But if you've had the virus, and one mRNA, well, you're unvaccinated. If you've had the virus and a J&J shot, which is a 1-to-1 dose, well, you're vaccinated. So, your antibody counts are high. Now, again, you might say, well, if natural immunity is the gold standard, why would I get vaccinated? There's one reason why. If you have the dominant strain now is Delta. So if you have had it, chances are you've probably had Delta. And even if you have, so there's a good chance you haven't had wild type. The vaccine, we know, is wild type. So what you will have is polyvariant hybrid immunity. Your body will have seen 2 different variants. In addition to having that, those data points will biologically put you ahead of everybody else. And, it basically, you have it, you're going to. And everybody's going to get exposed to it sooner or later. You can wear the mask and socially distance. I know I did it. I tried it. I got the virus anyway. It's going to get, and I suspect that I had the Brazil variant. So for me, it made sense to, get the J&J, do hybrid immunity. Why not? Idiots cutting monoclonals. Now, the monoclonals do have some decent studies and some good numbers behind them, though the efficacy is very good. It's not like, people have said, well, with the hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, some of the smaller studies are highly encouraging, but, in terms of surveying it, it would be nice to have something where you've got, say, over 5,000 people instead of 200 or 300. The Israel study did well with ivermectin. Cleveland Clinic did good work on hydroxychloroquine, but those are encouraging. But it'd be nice to have just a little bit more. Although, if if you're not having monoclonals in your state and you may have a breakthrough, well, these other remedies, I mean, you're going to have something, you're going to have to roll the dice and maybe try something different. And if you've been vaccinated and you want to try an alternate therapy, such as in a clinical trial, that's where those things will shine, because they're going to support what you kind of know how to do anyway. And of course, obviously the Biden regime wants to shepherd the bioweapon through the population, but there's cause for optimism. People are being vaccinated. People are getting natural immunity. The number of people that this thing can crunch for lunch is decreasing. It's running out of food. This thing is going to become endemic, whether Fauci likes it or not. That's the way it is. And if there's any proof, like I said before, well, I think China may run the United States. Well, here's another little revelation. Turns out there's a book by Woodward called Peril. And Milley recounts going behind Donald Trump's back, colluding with Nancy Pelosi, and even talking to a fellow in the People's Liberation Army named General Lee, who runs that, and claiming that they would warn China if we were going to attack and try to take the nuclear codes away from Trump. In other words, the insurrection was launched by General Milley, not by the January 6th rioters. The masked holes accuse you of the crimes they commit. They admit, they confess their crimes, but they do it in a special way. They just accuse you of doing what they're doing. So again, we can see that there's that communication with China, from Lee to the head of the Joint Chiefs to, and that's probably how that is delivered to Biden. I'm sure there's probably lots of other communications. We can see that, the White House staff, they can pull a plug on Biden. They can basically shut him up. And Biden's even said, well, I've been instructed to say this. I'm not allowed to say that. I mean, Biden's basically said, I am a puppet. When's the last time a president said, I am instructed to say this and I can't say that, and they said I can't do? I mean, presidents don't make those statements. They don't. We are essentially probably in a state of occupation by Beijing. That's the way it is. And, the other thing, they talk about the vaccines in kids. Well, you have to understand, China, if you have a bioweapon, there's no such thing as just one. You're going to have more than one. And let's say you're using coronaviruses and you're steering them towards, say, older people. Well, who's to say you don't have one that hits younger people? Who's to say you don't have one that just hits whites or just hits blacks or just hits men or women? If you vaccinate everybody against this coronavirus, it makes it a lot harder to come up with a future variant that may behave differently. It kind of can throw a wrench into the works. So you're not just vaccinating them against what's out there now. You're vaccinating against them, potentially against what can come out in the future 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now. And immunity does last a long time. People who've had SARS 2004, the memory B cells work great against wild type. In fact, the spike protein from SARS 2003-4 is put onto genetically engineered and spliced to the bioweapon that we have today. So again, the vaccines work. They're tested. The good news is they're tested in lots of people. The bad news is, well, the duration and the timing is a little bit less. But in general, I've looked into all the vaccines. I've researched the crap out of this. I just went through about, I think, 14 different research papers before I did this. Most vaccines don't have long-term side effects. I have yeah, I'm hard pressed to find a vaccine that has side effects beyond 3 months. Most of them, the long term, your arm hurts for a week and that's it. They don't persist in the body. One, and two, you're eventually you develop immunity and you break it down. It takes 2 or 3 weeks to form, to go through the process, antibodies, T cells, B cells, and for that system to set up, and then after that it's gone. So your long-term effects go away. They're just, for any vaccine, there basically are no long-term effects. The only exception, of course, is the live virus vaccines, like some of the polio ones where people unfortunately catch polio. Aside, those and that's not what we have in this country. We don't use those. And there were some in the reports of mercury being used in those. That's never been proven. That's discredited. Again, we don't use mercury in modern vaccines, at least especially childhood ones. So that, again, that's not a cause for concern. It just isn't. But the idiots are out and about. That's what they're doing. And again, as we can see, the Biden regime is killing off their political enemies. That's what communists do. And you also, and to make matters worse, and here's the part, they want to vaccinate you, other leftoids who are Biden voters, but when you have illegal aliens coming in, that's a captive audience. Why can't you could throw a J&J shot into all the arms? Why the hell not? But if you want to raise the body count in red states, it's better just to dump them in red states unvaccinated. So again, you have to understand, if you're a patriot, this is Trump's vaccine. 2, the idiots cutting off monoclonal antibodies. The idiots even cutting off promising older drugs and newer drugs. The idiots also dumping illegals in your state. So you will have a date with the coronavirus. You will ultimately either get natural immunity or die. And the thing about natural immunity is it's great once you have it, but it's crazy dangerous and really nasty to get there. So what you want to do, think of the vaccine as training wheels. Think of it as, instead of dumping this huge evil whole, dynamic and benevolent virus at you at once, show your system a piece of the virus, handheld. It's kind of like you play a video game. You don't necessarily start out at the most advanced level. You start out at the beginner level and then you move up. And the vaccine is just a stepping stone, 1 or maybe 2 steps to doing that safely. Because again, it doesn't matter if you pop positive on a test. Okay? Another misconception. People think the Delta has escaped the vaccine. Not quite. The antibodies are not optimized. But when you get immune, you also have something called T-cell immunity. The killer T-cells that you develop on wild type work just as well against Delta as they do against everything else. The T-cells take a little bit longer to ramp up. So, you may pop positive, you may have a few symptoms, but those are the duration and severity is going to be dropped a lot. And it doesn't take a severe case of the coronavirus to get natural immunity, even if you haven't. Some people, even if they're asymptomatic, they get it. And a very mild case is all you need. And the vaccines are going to make that safe. When you have hybrid immunity, polyvariant immunity, basically, you don't even have to worry about this again. So, the treason that Milley has committed, that's what we're dealing with. That's who we're dealing with. We're essentially, we're not being treated as bad as the Uyghurs and Falun Gong are yet. The Chinese have to still kind of stay undercover and, hide out a little bit. But, the communists are coalescing their powers, and it's best to get any off-label drugs you want to try. It's best to, try to see where you can get monoclonals. The thing is, if you're quarantined and positive and then you got to travel 50 to 100 miles to get monoclonals, that's kind of problematic. There's legal issues with that, you know. So again, watch your ass. Think about, ignore the mismessaging. Ignore the leftoids taunting you. You don't have to tell anybody if you're vaccinated. You have to tell your fellow Trump people. You don't even have to tell your own mother. If you're cleared, do it. Boom. If you're cleared. Is any drug perfect? No. But the risk factors, statistically speaking, the virus is more dangerous. It just is. So, again, don't fall for the lies. Remember, your anti-vax people are most likely paid by the Chinese Communist Party, or else they're just a bunch of quacks selling snake oil against established cures, or both. So stay safe, follow the science. Ultimately, the vaccines and the monoclonals and perhaps other therapeutics in the future will get us out of this. The pandemic is going to wind down. It's becoming endemic because basically once everybody has some kind of immunity by hook or crook or whatever, the virus and the variants go away. They just, they can't, each time you get a new variant and you're exposed, it just becomes harder and harder and harder and harder for it to run. This is White Lightning 777 signing out. Long live the Republic. And remember, communism is murder. Socialism kills. Theocracy kills. Long live the Republic.